Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I will explain you how I changed my battery, what was wrong with it, why did it need to be changed, how it went, and finally how it's going. So let's get to it.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Daniel Montero, electroviajero de vocación, y me gustaría compartir mis experiencias contigo. ¿Te unes?
Let's remove the charger from the motorcycle. Let's go. You may have heard about some issues in Zero motorcycles Generation 3 models, that is SRF and SRS, like mine, the one I'm using today, in which some people use the motorcycles, go on a highway for example, and then what they see is that they have very low range, and the SOC, the state of charge of the battery, decreases abruptly, and then if they stop for let's say 5-10 minutes, then suddenly the battery has 30 or 40% more battery, and therefore way more range, and they can continue as normal. At the beginning it looked like only few of the motorcycles were showing this issue, but as time passed by we realized that it was not so uncommon, and yeah, there were some bikes that were being called to repair the battery. At some point it also happened to me. I thought it was not going to happen. I was riding it for 2.5 years and 34 or 35,000 kilometers without any issues. So in this video I would like to cover why are the batteries failing, how did I realize that my battery was failing, and the steps I had to follow in order for my dealership to change or swap the battery to a new one. We will also see the differences on the new battery or compared to the old battery, what's new, what has changed, the difference in charging regimes that we'll also discuss later, and some other techie details that some of you may enjoy. But the main purpose of this video is to let all the owners or prospective owners that Zero is taking care of the battery issues very seriously, and if you follow the steps I will describe later, and if you have these issues, it's very likely that you will get your battery changed under guarantee, no cost for you or your dealership, and you can enjoy soon of a new battery with even more range than we ever had before. So let's go for it. But before going into that I need to buy food for my cat, so I'll have to stop there first and then continue. Among the different cases of battery replacements because of magic charging, I highlight the case of Mark Travels, the guy that is touring the world with an electric motorcycle, the Zero SRF model from 2019. And in the early parts, in the early stages of his trip, he had problems with the magic charging. He widely described them on his channel as well, especially during his trip around the UK. And then when he came back to Germany, he sent the logs to Zero and the battery has been changed, and now he's very happy, reporting the highest ranges he has ever gotten. So Zero is aware of this issue, and they are fully committed to changing the batteries as soon as they fail. So follow up this video for more information on how to change the battery, how to request the change, the benefits of changing the battery, and the little drawbacks we will also have, at least for the first months of development. So if you're interested in what's to come in this video, keep watching. So let's start by explaining the different problems that I have encountered and that led me to think that maybe my battery was up for a change, a guarantee replacement in fact. The first symptom that you see is that the range is decreasing compared to what we would have expected when you first bought the motorcycle, or compared to the official numbers, let's say. You start to see that even though you are containing your speed to somewhat lower numbers like 70, 80, 90 kilometers per hour, you still don't get the range you should. So this is one of the first symptoms that your battery may be not so good. Keep in mind that we are talking about the Generation 3 models, the FST platform, which means that only the models 0SRF and SRS from 2019 to 2022 are included in this issue. Likely 2019 to 2021. Because most of 2022 bikes already have the newest battery version. So yeah, the first problem we see is reduced range. What else do we notice? And it's what gives the name to the issue, the magic charging. What does it mean, magic charging? It means that your motorcycle is charging out of nowhere. So let's say that you are riding on the highway for 40 kilometers, and then you start at 100% of battery, and then you stop at 40% after 30 or 40 kilometers. You notice your range is not so optimal. Then you stop to take a pee or to take a coffee at the gas station or the charging point or whatever. You start it up again and bam, it tells you now it's at 65 or at 70 or 75 or 50 something percent, which was not the percentage that you were seeing right after you rode it, right? So this is what we refer to as magic charging. You haven't put your bike to charge, you haven't connected it to the grid, yet you see that you have more battery and more range consistently, of course, due to this after you stopped, which doesn't make any sense, right? I wish it was as simple as just turn off and on your motorcycle and suddenly boom, you have more battery and more range. But unfortunately science doesn't work that way, so it means that there must be something fishy going on, right? It doesn't mean that sometimes we may see a difference of 1, 2, 3% when we stop our motorcycles. That it's completely normal. It means that the voltage of our batteries it's increasing. This is something called voltage sag, which means that under load the voltage of the cells is decreasing, and since the state of charge that the motorcycle reads it's based on this voltage, of course if you change the voltage you also change the state of charge, that is the percentage of the battery. So if you notice that your battery is just changing like 1, 2 or 3%, I wouldn't be so concerned about the health of my battery. But if you see more than 10%, I would start to say, maybe you should look into it. Okay, symptom number 3. When you charge, especially when you are at the top of the charging curve that is above 90%, you are trying to charge fast, let's say more than 5-6 kilowatts above 90%, and you notice that the charge is changing very abruptly, like 8 kilowatts, and then in the next second it's 0.3 kilowatts, then the next second it's 5, and so on. It's changing very fast. That also means that your battery it's not so good. Now we move to the 4th symptom, and it's also related to charging. Now I just described what happens when you charge above 95%, 93% more or less, but the 4th problem, the 4th issue happens at 100% state of charge. And here we could say that we have 2 sub-symptoms. So the first one is that you reach 100% of state of charge rather fast. So let's say you stop your bike at 30%, you charge it, and 1 hour later, even though you are not charging at full speed, you have your battery at 100%. That's weird, right? One would expect that if you are charging at 3 kilowatts in 1 hour, you cannot recover 50% of the battery. It's not how the charger works, unfortunately, at least not at those speeds. Now, the 2 sub-symptoms. The first one, if you notice your bike reaches 100% state of charge while charging, you stop the charge, let the bike sit for 5 minutes and turn it on, and it is no longer saying 100% but it's saying 80%, then again you have this problem with the battery, and it means that you are likely having the issues I'm just describing in this video. Then we enter into the second subsymptom, so 4.2, let's say. In this second subsymptom, it happens when we let the bike charge to the real 100%. So there are some reported cases in which people see that the bike is charging at 100% at full power, for 2 hours. This is not normal. Your bike is supposed to stay at 100% state of charge and keep charging for, I would say, 30 to 45 minutes tops. And I'm being quite generous, okay? Why? Because at 100% state of charge, the motorcycle will enter into balancing mode, which means trying to balance out all the small differences between the different cells that conform the battery pack. And I would say those are the 4 or almost 5 different symptoms that I have noticed on my bike when I started showing this issue. Now we are going to enter into what is really happening. Why all of this is happening? Of course, I don't have official information, so everything I'll say now, it's just pure speculation based on what the few of us that have a motorcycle and understand more or less how the batteries work, what could be happening. So please take this information with a tiny bit of caution, because this is not an official statement from Zero Motorcycle. I don't work from Zero Motorcycle, I just happen to have a channel and love these motorcycles, but I'm not working for Zero, so anything that I say, it's not representing them in any way. What we think it's happening, some users of the forums and also users of the motorcycles, is that one or more cells during the crimping process, that is when they are being assembled at the factory, they are not so well made. So for example, if we make an analogy, we can think of this crimping issue as a faulty connection, a faulty cable that it's sometimes touching, sometimes not touching, sometimes touching, not so ideal, that it's providing different resistance to the cells, and therefore it's showing a different voltage to the bike, and then the bike believes it's in a different state of charge, basically. So let's say, put the example of the magic charging, no? The symptom number 2. In this symptom, if we are riding on the highway or and we stop the bike, the cells have been working for some time, so when the batteries work, let it be charging or discharging, each time current goes through the cells, we have some heat that is generated. It may happen that when they heat up, the metals making the connection can shrink or dilate. In this case, they dilate, so they become slightly larger, and that can cause two metals that are not well crimped to separate, or to separate slightly like this, right? So we like to have something very close to good connection, the two fingers fully pressed. But what happens if when overheating these faulty cells, they just connect like this, or they just don't connect at all, right? What we are seeing, what the bike is seeing, is that the voltage of the pack has decreased suddenly. So for the bike thinks it's at a lower state of charge than it actually is. And then we stop. The cells, the connections, have some time to cool down. Now we have again the full connection between the cells. We turn on the bike and bam, we have again 70% instead of 40. That is the real state of charge. But this is only, the bike can only read this voltage and think that it has all this energy only when the cells are and providing the correct voltage, when the connections are properly made, so that the total voltage of the pack, it's the one it should. We can find this issue referred to as battery crimping in the literature, and this is something that sometimes happens with some batches of batteries, and we believe this is the case that it's happening with some of the motorcycles of the generation 3 of Zero motorcycles, so SRF and SRS models. So in the end, we have a manufacturing issue, and that is why all these batteries that are showing this symptom are being changed under guarantee. It is not a result of a poor motorcycling handling, it is not a result of poor riding habits or charging habits. It's just that some batteries were not so properly made. So this is a problem that has been recognized by many users, and all of us that we have shown the same symptoms, Zero has changed the battery. So now we know the symptoms, we know why it's happening or why we believe it is happening. Again, this is not official information. Let's go for the third part, which is how can we make this happen so that I get my battery charge under guarantee at no cost for my side. So what happens? I go now with my motorcycle thinking that I may have a faulty battery. Again, this is just for SRF and SRS models, the rest didn't have this issue. What do I do if I see that some of these symptoms are happening to me? The first thing you have to do is document. Always document everything that you see it's not standard, or that it was not happening some months ago, or that you know it's not normal to be happening based on the symptoms we have already described. So document everything. And what do I mean by documenting? Take pictures, take videos, log in the date and the hour in which you had the problems. All of this information is going to greatly help the Zero engineers to look at the logs and see if you are really entitled to a change on the battery, if these issues you are having are really meaning that you have this magic charging or crimping issue. Everything you notice it's weird, just record it. Pictures, videos, note down when it happened. And then the next step, when you have gathered enough data, it's to go to your Zero motorcycle dealership, the closest one or the one you trust the most, and let them know by phone, okay, I'm having this problem with the magic charging, because they know what magic charging is. So I would like to go and take the logs. So it is very important that you have to go to the dealership yourself and take the logs out of the motorcycle via the cable. It's not valid for you to take the logs via the app, because the logs that the dealership can take with the cable are much more in-depth and show all the details that Zero engineers need to know and need to check in order for them to validate if you are entitled to a battery change. So this is extremely important. You go to your dealership, you inform them in advance of course, and take a book, a coffee, your laptop or your favorite podcast, because it may take up to 2.5 hours or even 3 hours for the logs to download. So in my case it took 2.5 hours to take the logs from the BMU, the battery management unit, and the MBB, the main bike board. So yeah, just for you to know that it's not something that can be done in 5-10 minutes, it will require some time. So plan in advance your visit to the dealer. In my case, they replied the next day. They said, okay, I only sent them the logs. I did not know that I needed some extra details. So this documenting I was referring to earlier. So in my case, they asked me, okay, on the logs there's some information. Can you please give more information on what is happening? Then I sent them the video I showed earlier, indicating the day and time in which it happened. And then they told me, okay, yes, we confirm the issues you are having can be solved by replacing the battery. The second reply took them 10 days or 2 weeks. And step 5, it's wait for your battery, your replacement battery to arrive. That may take some weeks to some months, depending on the stock, of course. In my case, it took 2 months to have stock. But that also may strongly depend on your dealership and your country. Once you are called, like, okay, we can change your battery, it takes, I think, 6-7 hours of dealership work if they know what they're doing. So you won't likely get your motorcycle on the same day. So it's very likely that you will get your motorcycle back in 2-3 days. So let's say that you have followed all the steps up to here. You check your motorcycle, you see there are some problems, you document the problems. You go to the dealership, they analyze the logs, they see that you need the battery changed, and then you receive your brand new battery on your motorcycle. You are the happiest person ever, because now you have a new battery for free on your motorcycle. So what can you expect now? What are the differences between the old and new battery?
Let's talk more about the physical differences between the batteries, the old HM batteries and the new BCB batteries. So as you can see on the label, it still reads 14.4. The first difference, it's these U shapes. The shape of these U's, it's dark, the same color as the rest of the aluminum case. It means we are dealing with a BCB battery. On the HM batteries, this side of the U's, it has the color of aluminum, fresh aluminum, so silver-like. The second difference, we can notice it from the front. We have two main plastic covers. We have the bottom one and the top one. You can clearly see there's a slot in between them. So on the HM, that is the old battery, the plastic cover on the front was a single piece, while in this case we have two different pieces.
The old battery, it's what they call the HM technology, that is mostly based on fire-assist cells that were developed originally for hybrid cars. Whereas the new battery, it's called the BCB battery, this one is using fire-assist cells as well, but those have been developed for the use on electric cars, so fully battery electric vehicles, BEV. The first thing we notice is that the new battery, the BCB battery, it's larger and taller than the previous one. There are two main reasons why this is happening. The first one is that we indeed have more physical capacity. It is the same battery that is being installed on newer models, that is generation 3 from 2022 and newer bikes, that exhibit or may exhibit up to 17.3 kilowatt hours of maximum capacity, like for example the one on the SRX. You can check the video that I did recently about this bike. So we do get the same battery with larger capacity, so it's only normal that the battery is also a bit bigger, right? We are putting more capacity. Sometimes it means also that we need to use more space to get that capacity. The second reason why this battery is also bigger, it's because as compared to the previous battery, this one has two big separate modules. Each of the modules is independently manufactured, and they are assembled together in series. So each of the modules hits a maximum of 58 volts max, each of them. They are assembled in California in series, so that they provide the total voltage of 116 volts. In between these two different modules, we have a big gap. Well, not a big gap, but maybe a couple of centimeters, a bit more maybe, that is used for active cooling. So now, compared to the previous bike, we have active cooling. We have fans moving air throughout and in between the two big modules of the battery, so that we can keep the cells cooler, and that means we can charge fast and ride fast for longer periods of time compared to the previous one. If we have less heating on the battery, that also means that the new battery is expected to have a longer lifetime, because we know that the batteries, lithium battery cells, they generate faster when they are hot. I will show in the pictures of the video my battery. My new battery also says 14.4 kilowatt hours. So what is happening? You just told us that the battery is bigger. Yes, the battery is physically bigger. You have all the capacity there. The cells are the same. The difference is software. So these new batteries that are being put on older bikes, they are capped by software to 14.4 kilowatt hours maximum capacity. Why is that? Why do they do that? In order to avoid issues with the insurance companies and also the certifications and the homologation, they decided to keep by software the same naming convention and the same capacity. But they also claim that the new batteries, the new cells, are 10% more efficient, which means that to ride the same distance, they are using 10% less energy, which means in the end that we can look at this as if we were having 10% more capacity. So that's a win-win for us, right? You get a brand new battery for free, change on the guarantee, that it's 10% more efficient. It says the same 14.4 kilowatt hours on the sticker, but in the reality you have 10% more range. What more can you ask for? The new battery is a couple of kilos lighter, so you could say, okay, they put more cells that they can use because they are capped by software, but I cannot use them. Yeah, but it's also less weight than you had before. It's 2 kilos less, I think, or 1 or 2 kilos less. So that's actually good, right? It's not that you are carrying more weight than we should. We are actually carrying less weight than we had before. We have more range. So yeah, what else can you ask for? Some people asked if we can unlock this full capacity. So far, I asked Zero, and it's not possible to increase this capacity for the reasons I mentioned before. It's also good in a sense. It means that we have a way bigger battery that we cannot use, but it also means that we will be using our battery not as high in the voltage, and not as low in the voltage. So it means that our battery will last much longer than those bikes that are using the full capacity. So what else can you ask for, right? Now I have to mention also the disadvantages. As I mentioned earlier, the type of cells that we are using, they are not the same as the previous one. So this new version that is meant for electric battery cars, they still need some fine-tuning for the rapid charger and the bike to accept high charging speeds. So what we will see later, and that is why we are doing all this video while riding, and I will go later to charge, it's to check this charging speed. So I have installed all the chargers that you can install on this bike. So I have 12 kilowatts plus the Cypher Store upgrade, so I can charge up to 12.4 kilowatts. It's the maximum charging speed you can achieve on this motorcycle, or the SRF, or the DSRX, at least for now. You never know what could be around the corner, right? I will show you with pictures, with graphs, with numbers, all the things I like, and hopefully some of you will as well. What is the charging curve of this motorcycle? Because you will see, we will see, that the price to pay now is that now the charging speed for this battery has decreased compared to the previous bike. So on this new battery we cannot charge as fast because they are still working on the firmware of the chargers to allow for faster charging speeds. So yeah, you get more range at the cost, for now, of reduced charging speed. Of course, this difference in charging speed, only users of the rapid charger as myself will be able to notice it. Users that don't have the rapid charger, that charge at up to a maximum of 3 or 6 kilowatt, that is the vast majority of users, they won't see a difference, at least until 80 something percent, and therefore it's not so critical for those people that the charging speed has been reduced. It is critical for me because I like to do very long trips. I like to charge as fast as I can, so really not the best scenario for an electric motorcycle, to be honest, but it's the one I like to do.
One eternity later.
So we have arrived after 133 kilometers. We have 34% and 64 kilometers of range. Again, the second half has been done driving on the highway at high speeds. So we put the bike to charge, 11.5 kilowatts at the moment. I guess the battery is not so hot in the end, so maybe that's why it's not reaching 12.6 at the moment. So we'll start noting down the values. It is time now to look at all the information I gathered while charging with both batteries and evaluate what are the differences between them. Is the difference that big? Let's find out. The charging curve starts at 35%, and then we let the bike charge to 100% using a 22 kilowatt charging station to make sure we have all the power available for the bike. First, I represent the charge of the HM battery, the old cell technology. As we see, it maintains its 12 kilowatts until almost 90%, then it drops steadily until reaching 100% state of charge. It is a nice, flat charge curve that allows us to charge the bike in approximately 1 hour. Then we add the same charging curve including the new battery technology, the BCB, when charging at the same power of 12 kilowatts. There we see a big difference. Our experiment started at 35%, and from there we already notice a constant drop in the charging current as we approach 100%. At 60% we are using only 8 kilowatts, so a drop of 50% in the charging current. And at 80% of state of charge, we are only using half of the power we have installed on the bike. At 90%, we get a constant power of 5 kilowatts until the charge is almost finished. Now, let's consider other charging curves for those who does not have installed all the accessory chargers. The riders using the standard version with the rapid charger will get a maximum power of 9 kilowatts. Thus, we can estimate the charging curve for this setup. It is almost the same as the curve of 12 kilowatts. At 45%, the extra 3 kilowatts are not making any difference anymore. We will see later the differences in the charging time. If we remove the rapid charger from the charging setup and we focus on the premium version of the bikes equipped with 6 kilowatts, we end up with something like this. We'll use our 6 kilowatts until 70% state of charge, where it will slowly decrease down to 5 kilowatts at 90%. Finally, the users of the standard version, that only has a maximum charging power of 3 kilowatts, will not see any difference in charging speed. In order to make this information a bit clearer, I have estimated the charging time from 35 to 95% for the 4 different charging configurations, that is 3, 6, 9 and 12 kilowatts for each of the batteries. Let's start with 12 kilowatts. This is where we see the biggest difference between the batteries. From 44 minutes with the old battery, we end up waiting 1 hour and 15 minutes using the new one, which means we will have to wait 66% longer for each time. That's a big difference. Now we move to 9 kilowatt charging power. We started having to wait 55 minutes with the old technology, and now we would need to wait 1 hour and 16 minutes, so a relative increase of 37%, not bad either. If we are using a premium version with no rapid charger, we would be charging the old battery in 1 hour and 18 minutes, and now we will need to spend 1 hour and 25 minutes in the charging station, a relative increase of only 8%, which is not much to be honest. Finally, as expected, users of the standard version, or all the bikes while charging on a regular socket using a maximum power of 3 kilowatts, they won't see any change in the charging speed. Once again, all these data are coming from the current firmware version, which is version 29 in the MBB and version 10 in the battery management unit. That was my personal analysis on the magic charging issue. We learned together what are the symptoms to look for, what was the main root cause for this problem to appear, what steps to follow to claim your battery replacement under guarantee, and finally the advantages and disadvantages of each of the battery technologies. From my side, I will keep you updated as soon as newer firmware versions are released. We will also discuss more about my personal experience when it comes to range expectations with the new battery. For now, I wish you the best on the roads and on your charging adventures. Stay safe, fellow elect travelers!